Welcome, everybody. It's time to start a new series. I am ready to dive into some Strategic Command World War I. This is a game I did a first look at a while back, but I'm ready to dive into a full campaign now, and we're going to take on the role of the Central Powers. Now, I will be the first to admit I am not an expert on this game. I've only played through it a few times, and I did my first multiplayer experience the other day, and I was playing a really experienced player and pretty much got trashed in the first year. So we're going to try to avoid that happening playing against the computer today. So we're going to dive into a single-player campaign. Now, there are a couple of different options here. The real difference between Call to Arms, which is the regular campaign, and the Triple Alliance is that Italy enters on the side of the Central Powers. Now, that was not what historically happened. So we're going to go with the regular campaign where we have the option to try and win Italy to our side, but it doesn't necessarily happen. In fact, it probably won't. Now we're going to go with intermediate difficulty, which means I might not win, but I don't want to give myself any unfair advantages, and I'm expecting, as always, that the herd mentality, which is all of you out there watching with me, you're going to talk me through this. It's how I get better at games. It's how I was able to win playing recently on Age Odd Civil War II. I never would have been able to get through that campaign if it weren't for all of the folks out there watching who gave so much great advice. So I'm expecting more of the same here as we take on the role of the Central Powers. Now, I like playing with the NATO units instead of the 3D units that it gives you. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to keep everything else as is as we dive into this. Now, we will talk a little bit about the history of World War I as we go along, because that's part of the fun for this, for me, is being able to talk with you guys about the history of what happened. I'm not going to get into great details. Just listen to a 35-hour audio book on the history of World War I, so I know all kinds of things that really are rather mundane. I'm going to try to oversimplify it as we talk through this, but we do get to start. We get to take the first turn. This is a turn-based game. So let's read through here. Most of your army is now mobilized, but some units remain to be deployed. Some options on deploying these are to deploy them to strike hard in the west, to strengthen your forces in the east, to deploy them in the south, and send them to take on the conquest of Serbia. So let's talk real quick about historically what the German plan was. A lot of folks are familiar with the Schlieffen plan. So Germany knew for decades leading up to this war that they were going to be, if they did go to war, they'd be facing a war on two fronts: France in the west, Russia in the east. So the Schlieffen plan was this idea that, ever since the Franco-Prussian War had taken place in the later part of the 19th century, there had been this kind of really strong buildup of defenses along the French and German border. So the Germans knew that they had to overcome that. So the Schlieffen plan was basically attack through Belgium, overwhelm the French, get around their strong defenses on the border, believing that the Russians, with a big country and a big army, were going to take a while to mobilize. So they figure we'll take out France by attacking through Belgium, and then we've got time to rush all of our units east to deal with the Russian threat in time, because they knew they couldn't sustain a lengthy war on both fronts. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to delay the attack in the west as long as possible by not declaring war on Belgium, and instead try to withstand the initial Russian onslaught, because they do mobilize much faster than the Germans expected they would, and that was kind of what happened. So instead of focusing heavily on the west, I'm actually going to build up in the east and try to kind of absorb that initial Russian attack and then counterattack. I'm going to allow them to take a little bit of territory, and we're going to try to build a defensive line back here a little further. And that means giving up some of this land. I may try to hold at Königsberg if I can. So we're going to kind of build up right here. We'll throw some artillery up here. The cavalry corps, I think we're going to try to help out, because what we don't want to have happen is that the Austro-Hungarians give up a bunch of territory, because ideally what I'd like to do would be to build a line right here, but there's so much valuable territory. Morale is one of the things you have to manage in this game, and morale takes a big hit for the Austro-Hungarians if they lose a lot of these early territories, so I don't want to do that. So historically, we all know that what kind of precipitated this war was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. I'm just going to skip through all of this because I'm going to talk. I've already kind of talked through some of that stuff. The heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne is this guy, Franz Ferdinand, his wife Sophie. They visit Sarajevo. They're assassinated by Serbian nationalists. You know, you've got all these countries that eventually became Yugoslavia: Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia. They didn't like being under the control of the Austro-Hungarians. He's assassinated. The Austro-Hungarians put this list of, I think, 10 demands on the Serbians, which they knew they'd never be able to follow through on. And so when they don't meet those demands, there's war. The Serbians are allied with the Russians, who are allied with the French, and that brings all of them into the war. But the UK was far from certain about jumping into this conflict on the European mainland. What brings them in was the German declaration of war on Belgium, which was done to necessitate the attack on France. So Belgium's going to join, and the UK is going to join the war. I can't avoid that, but I can delay it by not declaring war on Belgium. That'll give me a month or two probably. And so since our focus is going to be on building up in the east, that'll buy me some time. And I'm actually also going to try to rush some additional units over that way if I can. I don't think there's a way to kind of do this. I'm just going to go ahead and rush them kind of the old-fashioned way here. Some of these additional units that are back here, because we're going to get some mobilized units as well. So we'll take some of these units over to kind of reinforce things over here. And that's the plan, is I'm going to build a defensive line from Königsberg down along here and just try to withstand the Russian onslaught, that initial wave. And if I can do that, then I think I stand a chance. So this war was not one that was going to be won quickly, and I realized that. And so that's kind of my objective, is to prepare for the onslaught as best I can and give myself a chance to win this war over the long run. So let's get over here to Tannenberg. And one of the keys to this game is to have a second line behind the first, because a lot of how you win is to completely wipe out a unit, because you can reinforce these units. And so the idea is hit one unit with 3 or 4 of mine in succession and wipe him out completely. And that's how you really hurt the enemy's ability to make war long term. Now, see, this is where it gets tricky, because I kind of have to build this defensive line along here. Let's go ahead and entrench everywhere we can. And see, these kind of already built trenches are things I don't want to give up, these entrenchments, but I kind of have to in some places. I just want to build a line where I've got units all the way along and there's no real places for him to sneak in between. And I'm going to try to hold everything there. Here's the Galician oil fields right here, which are really kind of one of the keys that I don't want to give up. I don't think I can entrench these guys, at least not this turn. That is a unit I can entrench. Let me rotate that entrenchment a little bit. No, I guess it does have to go that way. So this is the problem. I just don't have enough units right off the bat to hold everything. These are cavalry units here. There's Budapest. So I'm really not going to worry about holding or going after Serbia until I can get overwhelming power down there to do that. It just seems kind of pointless to go after them. So I'm just going to entrench and make sure he doesn't get me. But I really need to get more units as quickly as possible to build up and hold all of this, because I just don't have it right now. I'm just so thin on the Austro-Hungarian front. As for the Navy, I'm going to kind of pretty much hold them back. I am going to drop some mines out here in a few places just to maybe cause some damage. And if I can do that, then maybe we get an opportunity to maybe deal a blow if I can catch a couple of isolated units. The main thing we're going to do is obviously use our subs to get in the way of, hopefully, if we can kind of cut off the Russians from anything coming from the UK, I think that'll be helpful. You can see this goes all the way up into here. So I'm not entirely sure where the best place to do that is, but eventually we'll try to use our Navy, because I don't think the Russians will have a real strong Navy. So then in addition to that, you've got the diplomacy screen here, and you can see the percentage toward entering the war on one side or the other. The UK is at 75% toward joining the Entente. Ottomans are 20% toward the Central Powers. Bulgaria is 30% towards the Central Powers, specifically Germany. And you can see that kind of for all of these different nations. But we're not going to really invest in diplomacy right now. Research, on the other hand, might be a nice place to do some damage. I'm thinking about trench warfare and the ability to kind of entrench better. Oh, we don't have funds yet. We don't get funds until the next turn. That's right. All right, so we're going to work on entrenching these guys. I feel like I ought to move a little bit further forward to close this gap a bit, because I feel like I'd be letting too much German territory be given up there. So we're going to move forward from Posen and entrench a little further along this line here. Don't like having cavalry on the front line like that, but probably can't avoid it for the time being. I've really got to try and get additional units in along this line, and especially over here on my right flank down here. That's why I'm rushing these guys that way. I don't think I can entrench. Oh, I can entrench some of these. Good. And we've got some artillery here, which I can't reinforce quite yet. All right, so there's that. As far as the West goes, like I said, we're not at war yet, so there's not a whole lot I can do here except to maybe fortify my own line so as to protect against what the French might do. And we'll just entrench along this line, and if he wants to hit me, fine. But for the most part, we're going to ignore the French as much as possible over here and send units east wherever I can, because we're going to get more units. They're going to pop up over here when the mobilization begins. I think that's about all I'm going to want to do here, because the first turn you don't have any points to spend anyway. So let's go ahead and advance and see what it is that they choose to do. All right, we've got this decision to make. Would I like to send it to sail to Constantinople to serve with the Ottoman Navy? Yeah, we'll send it to the Ottomans. There's going to be a lot of decisions like that. Chancellor Konrad von Hutzendorf. Would you like to use these units immediately to deploy against Serbia or send them to fight against Russia? Let's send them to fight against Russia. UK protests against German naval movements. French mobilization continues. Everybody's going to be mobilizing. So Russian mobilization continues. A bunch of new Russian units are going to be popping up here. And there they are. They're already kind of showing up on my flanks. Thankfully, we're getting a few more to plug into those holes, because this initial Russian mobilization is going to be intense. They're going to just really load up on me, and they're going to have more units than I even see. And you're going to see what I mean here as we get along. Luxembourg has units showing up. So once Bulgaria gets into the war, that will certainly help things in dealing with them. I have to worry about Romania over here because I think they tend to lean toward the Russians. So the more we can avoid that, the better, I think. I guess we don't really have to worry about defending this border right here along with the Romanians right now. We just need to rush up and plug right here because this is where Russia can attack, is right there. All right, so the Russians are starting to attack. And this is really kind of how you have to attack. Is the only way you really make a difference in this game is to attack one unit with 4 or even sometimes more of your own, because you can reinforce these frontline units back to full strength. So what you have to do is completely eliminate a unit to really hurt the enemy. Like he's about to do here. If he can swap one more unit in, yep, and he just did. No, he didn't quite take it out. But you can see how that happens. You have to kind of do. That's how this game works, is what I'm saying. So as long as I can defend that unit and get him back to full strength, I'll be okay. Here come the Russians starting to push through. And they're going to have so many units showing up on my border. If I can plug this hole right here and just get a solid line all the way across, I think we'll be okay. All right, UK seizes the Ottoman dreadnought Sultan Osman I. That ticks off the Ottomans, who probably lean a little further toward us. And, of course, giving up Galician territory here really hurts Austro-Hungarian morale, so we have to be careful of that as much as humanly possible. Good, we're getting some more units. We really need to build up that right flank of mine on the border there. So this will be our first turn where we actually get to spend. And as much as humanly possible, my spending on the army, I want it to be on reinforcing losses and replacing lost core. I don't want to buy a lot of new core because they're expensive, and I'll show what I mean by that once we get into the turn. All right. Given our weakness in East Prussia, we could greatly strengthen our position by bringing Paul von Hindenburg out of retirement, giving him a field command there. To assist him in his duties, Erich Ludendorff can serve as his chief of staff. Yes. So that gets us a new headquarters out there. Konrad von Hötzendorf. Refugees have fled the areas of fighting. We need to say yes to this. It's going to cost us some of our MPPs, which is basically your currency in the game, but it'll raise our national morale, which is really important for us right now. Okay. So far so good here. We need to fortify this, and we also need to reinforce this unit that lost a ton. Now we can max it out. That's going to take a lot of our available MPPs to replace the losses that we've suffered just in these two units. You can see that's better than half of what we had already gone. These are both cavalry units here. I may lose this one. But now we're going to go ahead and be able to get some guys on this border here. Still a little thin, especially right here, and I don't like that at all, but I'm not sure I've got a lot to say about that. All right. I think we're already entrenched here. No, I guess we weren't. Let's pull these guys back to here. They've already got a kind of a natural defense there. We'll get these guys entrenched. Everybody's entrenched here. That's good. Let's continue our movement of a bunch of these forces to the east. It's going to take, a month or two for them to get there, but eventually they're going to make a difference. especially since we're really not doing a whole lot here. Now you can see here I could attack here, but anytime I'm going to lose more than he does, it's an attack that I don't want to make because there's no benefit to that whatsoever. And then the key is when you attack a unit, you got a unit behind it, you can hold down shift and you can flop them, you can kind of switch them and then attack again. And that's how you get a bunch of attacks on one area. It looks like pretty much everybody else is entrenched here. This guy needs to. But for the most part, that's all of them. So now let's look over here. I'm a little worried about this right here because it's still kind of sticking out, but I think we're entrenched all the way along. We can get elite reinforcements here, which would be nice. What's that going to cost? Only 22. But we can go up to 11. But if I reinforce, then I can't entrench. So let me entrench for now, and then we'll worry about that. We can reinforce these guys because they're already entrenched, and that won't cost a whole lot. Can I build up? Yeah, I can build up this artillery another 5 points. That'll be nice. All right, I think we're solid there. So this is really a lot of the game, is just going along, reinforcing and entrenching, and then looking for opportunities to exploit weaknesses so you can move the line. But right now, I'm all about defense. I'm just going to absorb this Russian attack as much as possible while I send reinforcements. And as long as I can keep him from taking out a lot of my units and from gaining a lot of territory, then I can counterattack in 1915, and I'll feel like that's worked for me. All right, we're trying to get this guy up there too. It's going to take a few turns for that. And again, just kind of holding the line here. I probably should have flipped that around, but that's okay. All right, and he's going to probably send, the French are probably going to send units up here. Can I reinforce this battleship? I can, but not all the way. All right, so I'm out of points for the Austro-Hungarians at this point. Let's go ahead and look at research. I do want to research, put a little bit of research into trench warfare. No, not the Austro-Hungarians. I want the Germans to do that. We'll just put 50 points into that. I've still got 192 available. Let me show you in the purchase thing here. To purchase a new corps is 225. Now, if a corps gets eliminated because he attacks it to the point where it's destroyed, I can redeploy that corps for half as much. But deploying takes a couple of turns, so you're out of that unit for a month or more. But that's the kind of the way to do it. So I'm going to reinforce existing units and only purchase new ones when they're ones that I've already had in the field and lost. Okay, up here looking at the Navy, I'll go ahead and put some points into this Deutschland pre-dreadnought. But for the most part, we're going to kind of sit tight with our Navy, at least for now, because I know there's no way I can possibly match the Entente's naval power. So I have to just look for opportunities to do little things with the Navy. But I think I'm pretty well set for my turn here. I don't know that there's a whole lot else I want to do. I've still got a few points left with the... I've got 140, it looks like. So I'm thinking maybe... Because I think you can actually send points to other countries. I just can't remember exactly how you go about doing that. These are just all the reports. So this is cool. I want to look at the report screen real quick because you can get some really helpful information here. This is the strength in terms of units. So right now, Germany and Russia are pretty well even. Austria-Hungary's got a little bit more than France. And so for the most part, we're pretty even as far as units in the field go. And you can see the economic strengths and things like that. You can see losses here. Nobody's lost anything yet. But that'll eventually come, and this is just a breakdown of all of those things. If there's anything in particular you want me to talk about in more detail, just let me know in the comment section, and I will go over those things. But for the most part, I'm just going to kind of talk about things as I get to them. Here's the war maps. This just kind of shows you diplomacy and things like that. So I think maybe a little more research and then we'll be done for this turn. I'm going to put a point into infantry warfare research. All right, let's go ahead and end that turn, and we'll see what the enemy does here. Improving the Ottoman Empire army will cost 200. No, we're not going to do that right now. I want to save my investments for me. Raising a Polish unit would cost 30 MPPs a turn for 2 turns. Yeah, let's do it. That's cheaper than buying a unit myself. UK protests against German naval movements. Yeah, I have to remember I'm not at war with the UK yet. UK prepares for war, so it's coming. Probably in September, we'll see the UK enter the war, so we've got to be ready for that. French mobilization continues. So mobilization, all that means is that new units are going to be popping up that I didn't purchase on my own. German mobilization continues, so there are some of my units, new ones that are popping up. That's 3 new corps, 4 new corps, 5 new corps. So that's 6. So that's why it was okay for me to start sending units that way, because I knew I'd be getting... I can't believe they mobilized out there like that, because they're just going to get pummeled. I wish they'd mobilized a little further behind the line. Progress in command and control development for the Ottomans. So this shows you a breakdown of how much you're collecting. And see, we're collecting some from Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, which is nice. We spent some on deploying von Hindenburg, food supply via neutral Netherlands, and then everything there. So, all right, so the French just popped a unit up into that little area there. That might be an opportunity for us to attack and wipe out a French corps, because we're going to be able to get 4 or 5 units on that guy. So those are the kinds of little opportunities I need to look for right now. That's nice. The Russians actually pulled back a little bit there. That may work to my advantage. I still have this line right here that I've got to plug. And see, when that happens, when a unit makes contact with somebody he didn't see, you get a bonus to your little attack there. I'm going to lose this cavalry unit. They pulled back. That might help me, but I still think I'm probably going to lose that unit. I'm also really worried about that guy there, because he's just going to get so many units on it that there's probably nothing I can do to keep him from hitting it. Yeah, there we go. That's how you defeat a unit. But now that's one I can, if I have the points, I can purchase and get back into the field in a couple of turns. But we've just got to withstand this initial Russian onslaught, and then I think we'll be okay. He's moving in, but he doesn't appear to be wanting to attack yet against my entrenchments, which is fine. If I can just, just imagine, if you ever seen the movie Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones, where they build up that big barrier to kind of slow the lava, and then it forces it to pool up, and then it cools and they stop it. I don't know if that's really how that works, but that's kind of how I'm imagining this, is that I'm just imagining building a wall that all these Russian units kind of come up against, but then they can't push through and they just kind of get backlogged. That's what I'm hoping I'm doing here. I've never tried this strategy before in a campaign, so this is brand new to me. Typically, I do the Schlieffen thing. I declare war on Belgium and try to attack through there, and inevitably I get overrun by the Russians in the east, so that's why I'm trying something a little different. And these turns take a while. You'll see. I mean, an episode of this is going to be a half hour, 45 minutes for an episode, and even with my editing, we might only get through 2 or 3 turns in each episode on here. All right, we're still not seeing a lot happening here in the center in Poland. French mobilization continues. Russian mobilization continues. Yeah, we're getting some more German. Oh, and Austro-Hungarian units too. That's really helpful. All right, we'll probably do one more turn. I think that'll probably get us to around a half hour. I don't know exactly where we are in time right now. So we did lose that 11th Corps, but that's the only one. Now here's the Entente's naval blockade. That eventually is going to have a big impact on me, as it did historically. But let's go ahead and take a look at where we are here. I think we're still in pretty good shape. Let's reinforce the troops in Königsberg. Didn't cost much to be able to do that. Let's see if there's any chance whatsoever of being able to inflict... Oh, yeah, look at that. Beautiful. That's worth it because we just wiped out a Russian unit and really only suffered minimal casualties in the process. That's the kind of thing we want to see more of. I think we're pretty solid everywhere else over there. I really would prefer to pull this cavalry unit off the front line, but for now, unfortunately, what I've got to do is... Let me see if I can... I can't swap with him. I'm going to have to reinforce him. And this is going to cost pretty much all of my units to do this. All right, we can pull that cavalry unit off the front line, and that guy's already entrenched. The entrenchments stay. You can move a unit out and move somebody else in. You don't lose the entrenchments that way, so that's good news. All right, here we go. I can't quite move into this territory. I could do it if I do this. Here we go. Pretty solid. I don't like this. I really need to pull them back. Actually, no, those are the Galician oil fields, and I need to hang on to them. But I think I lost my ability to entrench in the process. But these guys are now cut off, and that's a problem. There we go. Can't entrench when I've moved that far. I'm still really thin along here, and I don't like that at all. I don't know if there's a way to do like a strategic redeployment. Maybe there is, and I'm just missing it. Or I could even do a forced march, but that'll probably hurt them long term. This is the guy I was looking at. I think there's an opportunity here to get a quick kill on the French. Yes. And in fact, I'm going to leave that area open because I'd like him to rush another unit up into there and keep doing the same thing. See, now I can let him sit tight. I can reinforce him next turn, and I can use other units to do the same thing next time if possible. So otherwise, we're just going to kind of sit tight with all of that. Let's keep moving east with whatever units I can. And where does that put me as far as... I've still got 398 left for the Germans. So that's really helpful. I might go ahead and purchase another corps somewhere that I can assign out here on the east. Or I might try to send some of those points to the Austro-Hungarians. Let's get this guy reinforced. All right, so far so good. We've almost got this guy up to the border here. I'm just keeping the Navy back here because honestly, they'll just get wiped out by the French if they try to engage, I think. So I don't know how I want to spend the rest of these points. All right, I think we'll spend some more points in doing some research in infantry weapons or infantry warfare. See, we're only 3% of the way. It takes a long time to do research and really get anywhere with it. So I feel like it's just, I don't know if that's the best use of my funds right now, but I feel like it probably is, or I just sit tight and don't do anything. I don't know. I'm going to throw some more into trench warfare because it's a relatively inexpensive way to do research, and that'll give me the ability to get higher maximum entrenchments. And I've still got a lot of points left, so we could buy another corps. It's going to be 225 to do that. I'm going to go ahead and buy one, and that'll get me another one that I can throw out here on the Eastern Front and just kind of help fill in some of these gaps. Beyond that, I think I'm going to sit tight on my points for now because there may be turns where I end up needing them more. So let's see what happens as we get into September of 1914. Now, historically, the Germans had some really early success in the West, and they got pretty close to Paris. But then it all bogged down, and it stayed that way for the next 4 years. It's mind-boggling, some of the casualty figures in some of these battles and what they were facing. Just the hundreds of thousands killed in battle. The UK has joined the Entente, so we only bought ourselves about a month by not declaring war on Belgium, and not really any more than that. But that was a crucial month. UK starts sending supplies to Russia, so now we need to watch for that supply chain, where that is, and see if we can disrupt that. Japan declares a war on the Central Powers. So I want to try and disrupt those UK supplies to Russia however I can, and I'm not entirely sure how to go about doing that. Maybe some of you do, but we'll see if we can kind of see where that is. Indian Army formations. Lord Kitchener issues a call to arms. Ferdinand Foch is provided with a field command. So all these historical things going on in the background. Good, he did. As long as he keeps throwing units up into that little salient right there, I'm going to be able to keep hitting them, and I think we're gonna make that a real easy way to knock out French units. So ideally, what I want to do here is I want to push this line forward right to here because I don't like this salient, and I really can't afford to give this up because these are the Galician oil fields right here. So I've got to push this forward, and then hopefully I can get that entrenched right there. Because right now I just don't like where that is, even if I just push a couple of them forward. Beautiful. That was lovely. All right, here he comes again, and this is the problem. He's just going to be able to put so many units on this guy that I don't think I'm going to be able to hold there. Nah, he's got it. I hate giving up those oil fields. But really now I just need to pull this guy back here. Alright, we should be able to hit that Russian unit and wipe it out. So we'll go ahead through my next turn, and then I think we'll probably wrap this episode up there. Oh, he's getting around my fortifications. Ah, these darn Serbs. I'm going to have to throw at least one more unit down there. So far, he hasn't really exploited this hole in my line. Looks like the French are moving forward. I don't think they're going to be able to hit me at Metz, though. Alright, I think that's the end of the Russian, or the end of the Entente turn. Nope, he's still got a little bit more going on. A lot going on behind the scenes that we don't see, and of course that just reminds you how much of a big force he's got back here, because there's things going on that just aren't being shown because they're happening in the fog of war. All right, we saw a few more units show up over here. Looks like he's thinking in purchasing right now, so he's probably nearly done with this turn. And the longer this game goes, the longer these turns take. I've been editing out a little bit of it, but loss of grain from Galicia leads to hunger in Austria-Hungary. Russian morale boosted by the capture of the Galician oil fields. Ugh, that hurts. But I just don't know what I could have done. Prince Wilhelm flees Albania as civil war breaks out. Albania prepares for war. Russian mobilization continues. Entente naval units blockade. And that should get us to our turn. All right, we got one new unit this turn, a U-32 sub. We'll throw that over here for now. I don't see where we get in the way of the UK. Oh, it's probably this right here. There it is, that red line. That's going all the way around and coming into Arkhangelsk. So that's what we need to get in the way of. to keep the Brits from being able to reinforce the Russians. So we're going to have to figure out a way to get up there, maybe sneak our fleet up into that area to help out. So let's go ahead and at least take my turn, and then we'll wrap this episode up right there. I don't think we're going to want to hit we can hit him, but then that's going to hurt me in terms of reinforcement. So honestly, I'm just going to reinforce and hold the line here. We could hit him there, but again, I feel kind of better off about just sitting tight. I'm going to move these guys down here just to plug this hole a little bit. I probably should have turned that entrenchment a little bit. That's okay. All right, we'll just hold this line here. Starting to get these other units within range. Still a little thin on this side. Definitely thinner than I'd like to be. Let's go ahead and push this forward. Now we're going to start having the ability to reinforce behind the line a little bit. All right, still a little thin here, but getting better. Let's put this guy right here. All right, let's go look in the west real quick and see if we can. Beautiful. And then we'll swap him off the front line. We'll get these guys reinforced. I hope he keeps doing that. I hope he keeps putting people in that spot, because that really makes it easier for me. All right, everybody else, we're just going to sit tight. But the more we can do little things like that in the west while we wait, the better. Let's get these guys reinforced. We're going to have to throw somebody up here because I've got nothing at the moment to deal with that. Boy. Yeah, maybe we'll get somebody else mobilized. In fact, we probably can go ahead now and purchase that core that we lost. We've lost 2 core, and it's only 135 to replace. It'll take a month to get them, but that'll help moving forward. We haven't lost any German core so far, but we could purchase another one. Maybe artillery is the way to go. I could probably use some more artillery. Other than that, just not sure how I want to spend those points. I think I'll kind of sit tight. The Ottomans have a lot of points right now, but I think that's pretty well what I'm going to do for now. Let's go ahead and stop there. Let me know your thoughts. Are there things you see I should be doing differently? Are there things I'm not thinking about? Things I need to do differently? I think I might pull these guys back here. I don't know. But let me know that too, because I haven't ended my turn yet. Use the comment section below. We'll be back in a couple days with another episode. Please don't forget to drop a like. And if you do leave a comment, those things all help to support this channel. So I appreciate those things in advance. Check out some of my other videos. We'll see you again soon.